I'm Edward October. There's only one way to serve a fine bourbon, poured neat and slowly savored. The retro horror stories served by OctoberPod are just as refined as an aged bourbon, but now there are two ways to enjoy them. Subscribe to OctoberPod Home Video on YouTube. There we debut our latest true, true-ish, and/or classic tales of horror and the paranormal on the first and third Tuesday of each month. And now you can pour yourself a double serving of OctoberPod. Find OctoberPod After Midnight, that's OctoberPod AM for short, on your favorite podcast app. There, on the second and fourth Tuesday of the month, we serve up tall glasses of our most horrifying spirits, specially curated for you to savor. Each episode of OctoberPod AM lasts about an hour, just long enough to sip a good scotch by the fire. Now there are two ways to enjoy retro horror thrills of impeccable taste. Find all our links at octoberpodvhs.com. OctoberPod, retro horror for bold individualists.
Hello, and thanks for tuning in. It's Weird Mythic Podcast with Serena and me, Naomi. Hey, Serena.
Hi.
Oh, how have you been at work?
Oh my gosh, it's been so crazy. I was building shelves all day long today because I'm reorganizing the entire office. So I'm the only one there. So I didn't have help or anything. Like, nobody's there to assist me, right? And then the one guy we do have in the office, he's on light duty, so he can't help me lift like everything I need. So I'm like trying to carry these giant boxes out of this warehouse and like organize everything because we have big shots coming in tomorrow, and it's been fun.
Keeping you way
and
busy.
on top of that, we're really busy because it's hot as balls out here. So
I honestly didn't expect you to say I've been carrying boxes and building stuff. I'm like, wait, what happened? Like, what have you been doing?
I've been doing. It's been crazy. What about you? How's work for you?
Oh, the same, just hella busy, and I'm done with the heat already. And it has really nothing to do with the heat. It has, you know, how people act in the heat. So.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Yep. I got yelled at so many times today. I was like, you guys understand, by yelling at me, I'm not going to send someone out faster to fix your air conditioning, right? Like, you know that's not how that works.
Like, yelling at people really gets you nowhere. Like,
it gets you. I'm so over the Karen culture. Like,
oh my God.
We're done with Karens. 2022, we're done with Karens. We don't put up with it anymore. Customer service, you can suck it, okay?
I am on your page. Like, just done.
Yeah. Well, today's going to be fun and a little different because we're going to be attending the True Crime Podcast Festival in Dallas in August. So
yes, we are.
What are we doing?
We're
doing things.
Yeah, we're doing things, guys. We are making some moves. Well, Serena's making all kinds of moves on Twitter, guys. Just by the way, she's always on there. But since we're going to be going to the True Crime Podcast Festival, not only do we want to stick to our, regular kind of cryptid paranormal stuff, but we're going to start including some episodes for true crime stuff. So if you guys have any suggestions on a true crime thing, whether that be like, I don't know, I want to say like murders or kidnappings or people disappearing, something along those lines, send us some suggestions because we're going to start incorporating that all the way up to the True Crime Podcast Festival.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, we're starting that today. Just a heads up. Yay.
Yay.
So I do also want to say, if you're sensitive to those kinds of stories and they're not necessarily your favorite things, we are going to give you a warning in the beginning of each episode that we do that in. So this is going to be one of those episodes where we do talk about something that has to do with people getting killed. So here's your warning. We will not be mad if you don't listen. It's fine.
I'm going to be so pissed off.
No.
But with all of these episodes, even if we're going to be incorporating the true crime aspect into it, we're still going to, have something paranormal for you. We're mainly going to have like a true crime cryptid combined episode. So we'll be doing that like every other week.
Yes, it's going to be exciting. Naomi has also been making moves, and we are now on YouTube.
I'm trying. I got our first episode up on YouTube, but starting this, when we drop this episode will be up on Sunday or Monday after it is dropped. So it'll be up on YouTube also. So I'm going to try to keep up with Serena and do it then. I'll have all of our other episodes up eventually, but right now I just have our first episode out. But, that is changing.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, today we are going to be talking about, I guess it's kind of like a part 2 to one of our very, very early episodes, right?
Yeah, I think it was like episode 3 or 4.
Yeah, we did possessions.
And exorcisms.
Demonic possessions, exorcisms. Yeah, we talked about kind of the history of exorcisms and how they came to be and the rules of performing an exorcism. So that was a super interesting episode that I didn't go back and re-listen to, but
but you meant to.
I still remember what we talked about.
I went actually because I wanted to listen to the episode, and I just honestly I didn't either. But I did go through all of my notes, and I was like, oh my god, I talk so freaking much. I have like all these check marks when I said something, and I'm like, well, I'm not covering any of those, so that's good.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm excited to hear what you have for me. So go ahead, girl.
So I am going to be talking about, and this is in France, so I do apologize if I mispronounce anything. So I'm going to be talking about a convent in France from the 1600s. Loudun, France. In 1634, there was a big witchcraft trial. Let's put a note out there that in 1632, there was a huge outbreak of the plague in France. So let's keep that in mind that in 1932, they had the plague, and then there was this big witch trial in 1634. I'm sorry if I say 1934 or 1932. It's definitely 1632 and 1634. So I'm going to talk about this priest. His name was Urbain Grandier, and he was accused of summoning evil and was eventually convicted of sorcery. And eventually he was also convicted of like pretty much having a pact with the devil. So there's this convent, and this was the convent of Ursuline, and the nuns opened it in Loudun in 1626. And by 1632, there was about 17 nuns. All of these nuns were around the age of 25. Like, none of them were over 30. They started reporting, like, possessions or seeing demons or hearing demons about 5 months after the plague outbreak in 1632. During that outbreak of the plague, the nuns did shut themselves into their convent and really didn't let anyone in. They didn't go out. They weren't, trying to spread the word of God at this point. They just shut their doors and did not, come out. But the priest, Grandier, he wasn't in the convent, but he was in the town of Loudun. He was still out helping the sick and poor at that time. Around 1632, after the whole plague outbreak, the nuns started to report that they were having demons coming into the convent. And at that time, there was a chaplain, and he figured maybe we should start some exorcisms. This chaplain did live in the convent with the nuns, and he started just doing exorcisms, but nothing helped. The nuns still claimed to see a demon named Asmodai, and that these demons were sent to hurt and abuse them. The only reason why Priest Grandier was accused, it was like all of a sudden somebody was mad at Grandier because he was talking to somebody's wife. Apparently the nuns might have, seen something, but there's really no reason why Grandier was the one who was saying that he was the one sending demons to this convent. So something about the convent in Loudun, France, is the fact that it was a convent being like, having demons attack them. there was like public exorcisms going on, like in the middle of this town. And when they were doing these public exorcisms, these nuns were barking, swearing, making very odd gestures. A lot of it was kind of sexual in nature. So people were like this was almost a tourist attraction. People were coming here to watch these public exorcisms on these nuns. I've never heard of that before. It was insane. So also during that, Grandier was eventually arrested because somebody said he's the one who's sending the devil after us. He was eventually burned at the stake, and I could not find any reason why they still accused him of this, except for just the fact he was talking to somebody's wife, and apparently he was just really friendly to women. He was flirtatious is the only thing I could find on why they were accusing him of sending the devil after these nuns. The thing is, Grandier, even after he was burned at the stake, there was still public exorcisms going on. Like, there was no reason to kill that man after, going through all that. There was really nothing. There was continued public exorcisms. The nuns, and keep in mind, nuns don't always stay at convents. They went from convent to convent. They didn't always stay in one spot. But it was only at this convent in Loudon, the convent Ursuline, where this was happening to nuns. So they thought, he's the priest here in the town. Maybe that's another reason why they accused him of it. But he was there was more than one priest at the convent, and he wasn't even at the convent. It really just made no sense to me. Apparently there were others who were accused besides Grandier, and unfortunately these people were also almost tortured, which totally reminded me of the Salem witch trials, tortured into saying exactly what they were being accused of. And then eventually they were sentenced to death also. So there was a lot going on, obviously, in Loudon in 1634. And at one point, there was a nun at the convent, and she had this dream. And in this dream, she was told that she can be rid of the demons. She can help get rid of them all. The only thing that she had to do was go visit the tomb of St. Francis de Sales. I did not know who that is, and I still don't, sorry. But she had to go visit this tomb in France and then meet with King Louis VIII. And then apparently on that trip to meet the king and see this tomb, the demons went away from the convent in 1638. And then that was it.
So weird.
And I'm like, what? So they tortured these people, put them to death, and then this one nun got rid of them by visiting the king in a specific tomb in France? Freaking wild. And I don't understand it. And I'm not the only one who didn't understand it, guys. I'm sure everyone else feels the same. They're like, what? So, the philosopher John Locke, I know I've talked about him before on the podcast. He is one of my favorite Enlightenment thinkers and philosophers. In 1678, he decided to do some research on what the hell was going on here. And I really what did he say? His theory is that the town of Loudon was against Grandier, and the nuns pretty much helped everyone trick him into being persecuted and dying, and he was murdered pretty much by these people. The other interesting theory is, why would the nuns lie and do this? And another philosopher, Michael de Carew, says that those symptoms that the nuns acted on, like the barking or the obscene gestures that they were making or the swearing that they were doing, were things that nuns could not do, right? Like, nuns aren't allowed to do stuff like that. So who's to say that these nuns weren't trying to get something out or show something and express something that they weren't usually allowed or even able to do because they were nuns? And remember, these girls were 25 years old. That's all they know is God, but they probably aren't allowed to even explore anything, So maybe there was something in them that this was the only way that they could get something out. There's another theory that Grandier did possibly have some sexual assaults with those nuns and people in the town, like females and women who went to the church regularly. But then there's also theories that he was like possibly sleeping around with some of the women who went to the church, and he possibly had a kid with one of his friend's daughters. Like, there's rumors that he did that. So maybe there was something about Grandier that was possibly evil, or at least made him not a good person. But I don't think he had a pact with the devil to torture these nuns. So I don't know. There was another theory that I read that maybe if this was a trick by the church on purpose for the townspeople of Loudon, because most of them were Protestants, so maybe they were trying to convert them to Catholicism by showing them, we got to get rid of these witches, we got to get rid of these demons, and you can only do it with Catholicism. So that was another theory. But I don't know. I think it was group hysteria, kind of like the Salem witch trials. That's my theory. I couldn't really find any reason why they killed him or anyone else that they accused. I did, however, find a really cool document. The only document I could find. And I did find it on, it was like the Columbia College website. And they had a signed agreement between Grandier, the devil, the Leviathan, Astaroth, and other demons. And it was an agreement that he gave his soul to the devil, or he pretty much sold the nuns' souls to the devil in 1634. And it was apparently used as evidence in that trial against him in 1634.
Shut up.
No, it's there. I'm gonna post it on our Instagram. That's my picture for it.
So creepy.
So I don't know. You guys tell me what you think. It was an insane read. I found a few different websites that pretty much all said the same thing about Grandier, kind of just being flirtatious, but there's no real reason for the nuns to accuse him of this. But, I mean, this was only happening at that convent. That's the only thing that makes me continue to question if there was some type of demon possession there that needed an exorcism. Yeah. But they were always doing exorcisms there at the convent and out in the street. But why was it only happening at this one with different nuns going in and out of the convent? That we don't know. So it's weird, very strange. So yeah, that is my story.
That's creepy.
I kind of wanted to look up some more on it, but there wasn't much else. There was a whole bunch of theories that were really interesting, but nothing. I was trying to look for like newspapers or posters from that time, but all I could find was that one piece of paper that was supposedly used in the 1634 trial against him. So, and I had his signature on it, so.
That's a good piece of paper to find, though. If you're going to find one document, that was a good one.
It was very interesting. I did also kind of want to talk about this other article that I found in the Washington Post, and it was from a psychiatrist whose name is Richard Gallagher. He is a psychiatrist who actually helps the Vatican with determining if somebody is being possessed by something or if it's some type of psychosis. Now, of course, he doesn't say that it's a demon possession. He just says if it's psychosis or not. Really cool, awesome article that he did. So Richard Gallagher is a skeptic, but he does have like his degree. He's a professor of clinical psychiatry at the New York Medical College, and he's a huge skeptic. But back in the 1980s, he was approached by this Catholic priest who wanted his opinion on a possible possession case. So that's kind of what got him started. One of my favorite quotes that he put in the article was, and he was talking about helping the Vatican, was, "But with careful observation of the evidence presented to me in my career has led me to believe that certain extremely uncommon cases can be explained no other way." He's talking about possession. He's talking about he's come across cases that he cannot explain as psychosis.
I feel like that's like when the body like moves in a way that like a human can't make your body move, or like guttural noises that like it's hard for a human to make, or things like that.
No joke. That's exactly what he says in the article. I'm not kidding. He says he's like, I've witnessed people speaking a language that apparently they never knew before, or they know secrets about somebody that has never been told to them, and no one should know that. So it was a really interesting article. I definitely encourage everyone to read it, just to have that skeptic point of view from somebody who is still a skeptic, but has possibly seen demonic possession. So yeah, his name's Richard Gallagher, professor at New York Medical College. It was a really cool article. So, and he does like talk about the difference between how he sees a dissociative identity disorder and personality disorders and psychosis, and how he differentiates it from he can't explain what this person is going through, you know?
Yeah. How scary would it be to see a exorcism in person?
It'd be wild.
Do you think it'd be scary, or do you just think it'd be really interesting?
I would think it's very interesting for the fact of, did I know this person before they were quote unquote possessed? And
like, what if it was me?
I would be very worried. Like, I'm not scared or anything. I'm just worried, but I'm there for you, girl. We'll get that demon out. If you got a demon in you, I'm there. I'm going to help you. Like, just saying.
Love you.
Just saying.
I'm all like busting out all your secrets and shit though.
Yo,
like,
bitch, shut up.
I know. You're like this fucking whore.
Oh, y'all, shut up. Like, I can't be here anymore. You're on your own. Like,
I know, right? You're like, the podcast is over now. I would hope that you would like record it though for like podcast purposes, right?
I would record it for personal purposes, just to be like, this is wild. Like, I gotta remember this. Like, but definitely
That's
podcast
crazy,
purposes.
yeah.
I don't know, if I saw an exorcism in real life, I want to know how I got to see the exorcism. I'm more curious to know what led up to that. Like, the exorcism is like the last straw. So what led up to, we gotta have an exorcism, you know?
I feel like I would be super, super scared rather than like interested, because just you always hear like the stories that you do research on. It's always like the person that's getting exorcised starts like attacking or something, you know, like they're scratching or they're cussing or they're spitting, or, you know, it's like I'd be like fearful for my like safety. Or like, what if the demon does get expelled out and then they choose me? Like,
yeah, then where does it go? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Ugh,
man, I don't know. The whole exorcism thing, I'm too much of a skeptic to believe that something paranormal is happening, and that might just be because I didn't experience it. But I mean, I don't know. I think there's been so many different exorcisms. Like, I had it written down at some point, like how many exorcisms have been done in the United States, and I don't have it written down like I thought I did. But I mean, it's almost in a high demand. There's a whole exorcism possession like group of people that the Vatican has just in the United it's just in the United States that the Vatican has, because there's so many people reaching out saying somebody's is possessed. There's this demon attacking me. There's a whole group of people that do it.
I love that you said high demand.
Is. No, I'm like not kidding.
Just like AirPods.
Like, yes, it's in high demand because we need priests apparently, and there's no one quote unquote qualified to do exorcisms. Yeah. So
is that like fully trained, like the training process that we talked about in the last episode, where they have to go through all the qualifications and make sure everything is done the right way?
That guy who I talked about from that episode, he talks about how he's one of the only ones in that town, but people from like the next town over and the town over from that come to him because their priests can't do it. So.
Damn. And back in like you said 1600s, right?
Yeah, 1634.
Damn. That's like... Yeah. That's crazy.
Like,
it's crazy that you have documentation.
That's crazy. There was this one that I want to cover at some point. Maybe we'll have to do a possessions part 3. But there's this priest. He went by Brother Hermes, like Hermes. And apparently he has done over 35,000 exorcisms. 35,000.
Damn.
Like, what?
That's so scary. I just remember like the one that I talked about in the last episode where there was all that audio. Did you ever listen to it, like, fully?
Yeah, I always do because it creeps me out.
Terrifying. It was terrifying, and that's where I'm like, I don't think somebody can fake that. Like, you can't fake some of that stuff.
Right.
If you do, you're like the best actor that has ever walked this earth.
It's
like,
true. And you can't...
Leonardo DiCaprio has nothing on you.
You deserve an Oscar, damn it.
Yeah. It's an Amber Heard's
oh my God,
performance.
shut up.
Just kidding.
No.
Amber Heard. Team Johnny over here.
It's very true, actually. Very true. Huge Team Johnny over here. But we digress.
Speaking of court cases, all right, we'll get into mine.
Cool. Let's see what you got.
All right. So it is sad. Again, warning you guys, if you want to click off now, that's completely fine. We will not hold it against you. Naomi will. I won't. I'm going to be talking about Terrance Cotrell Jr. So I'm going to call him Junior going forward because that's what he was called. So Patricia Cooper was the single mother to an 8-year-old boy named Terrance Cotrell Jr. Jr. had been diagnosed with autism when he was only 2 years old. And by the time that he started school, his behavior became increasingly more difficult to manage. He had difficulty sitting down in class and staying still. He wasn't, paying attention to what he should have been paying attention to. He was often very disruptive. And oftentimes he acted out violently, where he was hitting and scratching and doing things that is normal when you're on the spectrum.
Like, yes, they have ways to help people with that.
Yeah, I mean, and this was in 2002, I believe. Sure. So the fact that they didn't have better support in the school system makes me, as a mother, so incredibly angry.
Right.
Like, and I'm the mother of a child that's in special education who is going through behavioral issues right now. And so I just see how they're handling it versus... I mean, I guess that was 20 years ago. But
that's good that you're seeing a huge difference.
2002. Yeah, 2002 just doesn't seem like 20 years ago to me.
Oh, gosh. How old was I in 2002? I think I was 11. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, God. Okay.
I was getting into middle school. I probably had some behavioral issues, too.
I'm sure you did, Naomi. All right. So, yeah, again, he had those behavioral issues. The school actually ended up telling Patricia Cooper that she would have to find a new school for her son.
Aww.
Like, he couldn't go there anymore.
That's horrible. Unless, I mean, I guess maybe if they were like, hey, we're not equipped to help kind of thing, but that sucks.
Yeah, but then find resources. Like, she's a single mother doing this on her own. You know what I mean? Like, now... I would hope, but I also don't know because it could be the area that they lived in. They could have been, poverty-stricken area where there just aren't the resources. Luckily, I grew up in an area where there were, so maybe it was different. I don't know. But one day while she was at the grocery store with her son, she was approached by a woman. The woman noticed that Junior was acting out and decided to basically just strike up a conversation with the mom, which is super weird in my opinion. Like, if anybody stepped in when my kid was misbehaving, I would be pissed. But she wasn't pissed. She introduced herself and told Patricia that she was a member of the Faith Temple Church. And the church was a small house of worship located in a rundown strip mall in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And the woman told Patricia that she believed that Junior was possessed by demons. And that's why he was acting the way he was acting, and requested that she bring Junior in for a special prayer service at once.
Oh, no.
Weird. Fucking
I don't
weird.
like that at all.
I would be so mad if somebody told me my child was possessed by a demon. I would be pissed. I would be like, we're going to talk about this outside because it's not going to be
We're not
nice.
even going to talk about it, actually.
Yeah, no, I don't know. That's just insane to me. But being a single mother, she didn't really have a lot of support. So she threw herself into the church's teachings. And for 3 months, they attended their prayer services religiously. Prayer, services every single week. Yeah, it was a lot. She just went balls deep. A neighbor of hers named Denise Allison did an interview with CNN and said that after the mother began attending the church, she actually believed wholeheartedly that it was demons and not autism. So she completely dismissed the diagnosis.
Oh, no.
And yeah, so you're not getting the help that your son needs. Now you're just chalking it up to demons, which is so sad. But she said, yeah, it's the demons that have been causing her son's outbursts. Patricia at one point had even claimed that the demons had spoken to her through Junior. And the neighbor told CNN that Patricia confided in her that Junior had said, "Kill me, take me, kill me." An 8-year-old boy. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Overseeing the church was preacher Ray Hemphill. He was a former maintenance worker turned preacher who claimed that the prayer services consisted of church members gently laying their hands on Junior and praying over him. And that's what it was, right? They said that's what it is. That's what happens. But it would seem that this prayer service, which some people are calling an exorcism, entailed far more than just laying of the hands.
No.
It's really sad. I'm not going to get into like excruciating detail because it's hard as a mom to talk about like this stuff. Yeah. And I'm sure you're so close with your nieces and nephews. Like it just hits, you know, it's really sad. And I don't want to cry.
Okay.
But according to reports during the final prayer services that Junior would attend, he was forced to lie down on the ground where several women, including his mother, held him down while the Reverend preacher guy laid across his chest.
What?
And he was flailing and gasping for air. The group believed that this was the exorcism and that they had successfully cast out the demon that had taken over Junior's body. And that was what those movements were.
My God.
But after the 2-hour-long ritual was over, the group had discovered that Junior was dead. The cause of death was asphyxiation because obviously he suffocated, right? And then in 2004, the prosecution decided that although they believed that Junior had died as a result of Hemphill's prayer ritual, it would be difficult to prove that he had intended to harm him.
What?
Which I think is
That's
bullshit.
total bullshit.
Yeah.
You put something over anyone's face, let alone a child, they can't breathe.
He was not his face. He was laying on his chest
God.
like a grown man.
On an 8-year-old child.
While people on an 8-year-old boy, like a grown man.
No. You know what you're doing. You know you're hurting that child.
Hemphill was arrested and charged with a felony for abuse of a child. A felony.
That's
dude.
it?
For abuse.
He should have at the very least got manslaughter.
Right?
Jesus.
In interviews, so he did interviews and stuff after all this too, because he just stuck by that's the thing that kills me, is he stuck by his decision, right? So he claimed that Junior had been possessed and that his autism was not the cause of his problems. He also believed that it was God's will that had caused Junior to perish during the church's prayer session. So he's like, yeah, he died, but that's what God willed. An 8-year-old boy.
No.
It doesn't sit right with me. But along with the felony charge, he was ordered to pay $1,224.75 in restitution, and he was ordered to refrain from performing any form of exorcism rituals until he had received, quote, extensive training in them.
Oh my gosh.
He was also sentenced to 2.5 years behind bars and 7.5 years of probation. And that's it.
That's it. And he didn't even serve the full 2 years. You never do. He probably went for 6 months.
Oh, no. I'm sure he was preaching his services in there. He got off with good time. So.
That is fucking wild.
Isn't that so sad?
That poor kid.
It's crazy, right? He thought everybody, like, okay, the mother, like, why didn't she get charged with anything? Why didn't anybody else get charged with, like, accessory or, like,
Nobody
I don't know.
was?
No, dude, the mother should have gotten charged with, like, neglect or
Child
something.
endangerment,
like, that's, at the least. Like, to me, that's insane. They still stick by what they said. Like, he's possessed by demons. This was in 2002.
That is wild.
Like, how? That's not to me, that's not that long
It's
ago.
really
like
not.
we know about autism. We know what it entails. Back in 2002, we sure did. Like,
we had ways to help people too. The fact that, and what's weird, what I think is weird about the mom, like, was she that like insecure and just, I don't know, but she believed that he had autism. Like, that's what the school told her and took him out of school so he could go somewhere else so he could get help. And then she meets this random person and just gets totally brainwashed into thinking that now her son, who was autistic, is now possessed by demons. That's a huge jump.
It's a far stretch, that's for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
That nobody besides the priest went away for less than 2 years.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so.
Oh my gosh.
So.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really sad. There are a lot of interviews you can go and watch. Most of what I found were like YouTube interviews and stuff like that. But it's yeah, it's really sad. And it just goes to show, like, the part that killed me was like the freaking extensive training part. Like, oh, he can do them as long as he gets the training, even though he killed somebody.
Right. Like, you can't. No, you should never be allowed to be a priest ever.
Definitely, you shouldn't even be allowed to like lead any type of prayer group or anything.
There's a lot that was mishandled there.
Oh yeah, it's just another, the system fails and fails and fails. Like, there were so many people involved in this that like could have stepped in and stopped it, or could have.
Yeah, like.
But the lady, it starts with the lady, like the lady at the grocery store who approaches somebody that you don't know, that you've never met before, don't even know their name, and you just go like, oh, your child's possessed by demons, come hit up the church. Like,
I know you didn't ask for this, but I think your child's possessed. I can help. Like, what?
I would be so offended.
Yeah.
I would be like, no, he gets his crazy from me. You better run. Like, get away. Like, I don't know how
if anyone's possessed, it's me. Like, back the fuck up.
Gosh. Yeah, I just don't. It's really sad. And, I mean, it was interesting to find a story like that, because I feel like it's not talked about enough, you know? Like,
definitely not talked about enough.
I don't ever remember hearing this story.
Or even, like, recently, like, usually people will be like, yeah, this was because this happened back then. Or usually people will bring up stuff like that in other court cases. But, like, I don't know. That's just so sad. And there was so many, it sounds like there were so many ways that somebody could have stepped in and stopped. And no one did.
Well, yeah. I hate getting the image of, like, the little boy going through that quote unquote exorcism, whatever, right? He had to be terrified. And he didn't know, like
how confused too. How confused and scared he was.
He's like, what are you talking about? I'm not possessed. I don't even know what that is. Like, you're 8 years old. Like, you don't know what that is.
So sad.
It's sad. Sorry that I had to end it on that.
Well,
but
now everyone knows why we don't do a lot of true crime.
I know.
Well, that's just sad. You know what?
This is why we don't have a fully true crime podcast, because we did talk about it. It was something that we talked about. It just weighs so heavy on your heart.
It does.
And
to just talk about it, and I mean, if no one's noticed, but I have a nervous laugh. So I don't want to be talking about horrible things and then laughing at it at the wrong times, and people take it the wrong way. And I'm just like, I don't know.
Oh yeah, me too. I make jokes in shitty situations to make myself not uncomfortable. And I would never want to like make a joke when we're talking about something so serious and offend anybody. Right. But we're just human. I mean, what can we do? But try not to do so many true crime episodes, I guess.
But we are this month.
We are this month. And it's nice to bring, light to cases that haven't been super talked about. I know that that's why half of the true crime podcasts out there do what they do. Everybody I talk to says the same thing. We want to bring light to victims that don't have a voice or never got a chance. So...
Let's show people what has happened, and let's help so it doesn't happen again. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
On that note, you can come visit us at the True Crime Podcast Festival in Dallas in August.
That's right.
And all of our social medias, Naomi.
We have Instagram, Weird Mythic Podcast. We're on Twitter at Weird Mythic. I think it's Weird Mythic Podcast, or is it just Weird Mythic? All right.
Mythic.
Weird Mythic at Twitter, Weird Mythic Podcast on Instagram, Weird Mythic Podcast on Facebook. And please go ahead and send us any, stories about true crime. We would like some suggestions. Let us know what you think about today's episode with the crazy 1600s cult and what the hell happened at this trial for this poor kid. Send us an email at weirdmythicpodcast@gmail.com.
Yay. All right. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Yes, we will.
Next week's going to be fun. We have another guest coming on.
Yep. We're going to have a couple guests this month, actually. So stay tuned.
Hey, this is David from the Piecing It Together podcast, a podcast about movies and the movies that inspire them. For over 4 years each week, a guest and I take a look at a new movie through the lens of what other movies we think were either an influence or connect in some other way. It's a fun, unique way to discuss films that leads to a great list of other movies to check out that either explore the same themes and ideas or maybe utilize similar filmmaking techniques. Including special episodes in our side series that twist the format, we've done over 200 episodes, so there's bound to be one on a film you've been thinking about and want to dig deeper into. So check us out on all the major podcasting apps and at piecingpod.com.